What was it that brought you to Maine?
I had been working with somebody whose family was from right up the street here in Rockport, and she and I developed a script together, and I lived in LA for many years, and had talked about vacation. She said, what you should do is take your family to Maine on vacation. I said, well, that's funny. I've never been there except down to Peaks Island. I used to go with a Greek family where I grew up in Bethlehem. We went to Peaks Island, Maine, which I guess was either reminded them of Greece or was filled with Greeks or something. But I remember roasting lamb on a spit and having lobster starters. So I always have very fond early memories of Maine. Anyway, we came up here, we rented a place. Camden was all booked because it was summer already. We rented a place down in Bayside, which is in Northport. Sort of a haunted, dingy house, but we ended up falling in love with the area. And my wife, Jeannie Francis, in her inimitable fashion said, why don't we just look around at some properties? Because we liked it so much. We looked at about 10 places, and as we were leaving town after our 2-week vacation, we decided we really liked one of these places. So we took our kids down at night, and it was a full moon, and the kids started running across the lawn of this wonderful house on the water. And we looked at each other, thought about it, talked about how much it cost, said, what do you think? And we just went nuts. We bought this house on the coast of Maine after having been here for 2 weeks, and we had never looked back. And
so you've been here how long now?
That was about 7 years ago. We were coming for holidays and for summer, and then I had a job in London that ended last April. And when the job ended, we were able to answer the question that has always been haunting us, which is, why is there some reason we can't just live in Maine? So we came here, we put the kids in school here, and we haven't looked back.
Big change, because through your professional career you had lived in New York, then Los Angeles. It doesn't get much more different than to come to Maine.
Well, it was very strange. New York, Los Angeles, London, Belfast is a...
Not the usual career path.
Yeah, but it's in many ways for the kids it's been the gift to be able to be raised in a situation where you feel safe letting them run around outside, where there's a good moral compass in this state in general that is not necessarily the case in Los Angeles, and there are a lot of arguments for Maine. You're here.
I'm here. I love it.
Yeah.
A lot of people love it. Let's talk about the beginning of sort of where that path started, which was you studied theater in college, then went to New York, worked in the theater there, got a break working on a soap opera, which I understand you say is really maybe the best training for a television actor.
I think it's the hardest job in the business to be a soap opera actor for a number of reasons. The dialogue isn't always the greatest. You've got to do on certain days 30 pages of it, and you have one shot at it. My wife, Jeannie Francis, was famous as Laura from Luke and Laura in General Hospital, and did it on and off for 25 years. And it's astounding the level at which actors, good actors like her, have to work at to make what is sometimes dodgy dialogue work. So if you can have success on a soap, you've gotten some really good tools, I think.
From New York, you went to LA, did a lot of work in episodic television, guest starring
You've read my
roles.
bio. What are you working off of?
Well, I can throw this away
Right.
if you want. And what I did not know, though, is that you mostly played villains.
I was the guest villain of the week for a number of years in LA, where I was father killers and drug dealers and wife beaters and troubled Vietnam vets, and it was well, that's what you were on. If you guested on television shows, generally the heroes on the show, the leads in the show were the good guys, and the guys who came in to guest were the people that the good guys went after. I mean, it was a pretty simple formula. So it just worked out that if you're one of the guests, you're generally a bad guy, or you end up being a bad guy.
And that all kind of changed in 1986 when you got the big break and got involved with Star Trek: The Next Generation. When you were getting into that, obviously the original Star Trek was already a huge worldwide pop culture phenomenon, but did you have any idea what you were getting into with Star Trek: The Next Generation?
When I was lucky enough to be cast as Commander Riker on Star Trek: The Next Generation, I had no idea that it was going to change I mean, it's a cliche, but it really did. It changed my life. It changed all of our lives. I didn't know, first of all, that it was part of the popular culture. I was not a Trekkie from the original show, or fan of the original show. I had no idea that it was so adamantly followed, and that it would be part of the fabric of, and not just in the States, but I mean around the world. It's a whole phenomenon that I'm obviously very thankful to be part of. But when I got the job, it was just another pilot season where, you know, you're an actor looking for hopefully you get a pilot, and hopefully your pilot gets picked up, and hopefully the pilot gets picked up and runs for a half a season, you know. Then you feel you've had some real success. But what this has turned into, for all of us, has been life-changing. It's one of the reasons that we're able to live in Maine, is that Jeannie had success on General Hospital, and I had success on Star Trek, and now we're opening a store.
And everybody knows you, of course, as an actor. They know you as Commander Riker, but Star Trek also opened the door for you to direct, and that opened a whole new, just a whole new roadway for you in terms of professional fulfillment. Mm-hmm. Tell me about getting started with the directing on television. I'm sure that the training wheels were on, and they kept a pretty close eye on you.
Yes, directing on television is a little different than directing in the movies, as I've learned. But again, the training that you get as an actor on a soap is as valuable as the training you get as a director on episodic television. I was lucky, again, Rick Berman, who was sort of at the helm of all things Star Trek, gave me, after I voiced an interest in directing, he said, you're going to have to go to school. He used to call it Paramount University. So I spent, 300 hours in the editing room with the editors and going through post-production and learning about the parts of the television show that I did. I knew something about the acting and the staging, and I had been around the camera enough that I had some ideas about how to move the camera. But the other elements, casting, those sort of things, which are all part of the director's job, I was lucky enough to be in a situation where I was able to trail experienced directors who'd made, some of them, hundreds of episodes of television. So between the directors and the editors, God bless them, who were very helpful in spite of the fact that some of them wanted to direct as well, I learned sort of the nuts and bolts of what you needed to make an hour television show. You have 7 days, you have this much money, you have this much coverage you can get, and you've got to get this much done in this many hours. And it really is, it's a factory, for better or for worse. Television is it's a factory job, and you can make some really beautiful product and some really good product, but you do have to produce the product, and the director's responsibility obviously is to captain that along the way. So I was so sick of sitting around as an actor, which you do a lot of, that I kept looking around and said, well, who's got that guy, the director? At least he's thinking about the next scene, and he's thinking about what color the costume needs to be, and he's thinking about, do we need to make some cuts? Am I going to get enough shots? And so it was a job that was attractive to me.
How did you get the nickname Two Takes?
2 Takes Frakes? I think it's from doing television. I've always felt that if you've got it, it's time to move on and get another shot. So if I've got a couple takes on something, and in it I believe that I've got the performance I want, I'm not afraid to print and move on. Where some directors, as I'm sure you've experienced or heard, they'll go 30, 40 takes deep, and I'm never quite sure what they're getting in that 37th take that's different from what they've gotten in take 2.
Strangest incident where you were recognized in an unlikely place by a Star Trek fan?
I have one always comes to mind. We were scouting locations for Thunderbirds, which was this kids movie that I did for Universal. We shot most of it in England, but we were scouting to shoot the island scene. So we were in South Africa in a town called Knysna. And to get to the area that we were looking at, we had to take this very rustic, dilapidated little boat over to an island that had sort of climbing areas and jungles, and it was very cinematic, but remote, and I mean remote. And we're walking through the woods with the production designer, the producer, and I, and this location guy from Africa, and I hear, "Commander Riker! It's Commander Riker!" And out of the woods, I kid you not, come these sort of international backpackers who had been hide away on this island in Neisner. You're the guy from Star Trek! And I looked at my producer and my production writer, and I said, and they said, even in Neisner. So that's my personal favorite.
I love you in Neisner.
They're big hit in Neisner.